We already have an education account here with semesters, project templates. This is how quick we can just create another semester number 2, and a workspace, and then just click to create a project here. And we can name them by group. Maybe it's like a group A, group B. We already have one created here. Here, the program leader would gather the project information for the team, giving the project name, maybe a description of the project, where it may be located, jumping in here, what's the project type, setting up the language, and any of the standards. So here, maybe for this project, we want to follow the ISO 19650 standards, and it's located in New York. The program leader can also consolidate other information, construction documents that might be located in BIM 360, or say they have project images added inside of Google Drive somewhere. So here, copy and paste the Google link, hit save, and then that provides the students a quick way to access all the other web applications or information. Now, the program leader could set up teams here by clicking here and providing a team name, a function or a role, an abbreviation, and a highlight for each team. Here I've already added Clive, who's going to play the role of a student as an editor, but we can invite others as viewers, editors, or managers. If you do want the students to have more of a role of a project manager, then you can play around with the settings to give them their proper workflow. In this case, we're going to have the students become editors and myself as a manager so that I can approve certain content throughout the workflow. So let's jump into the plan. So that's the group project setup. Now let's go through the basic BIM execution plan workflow. Here we have the slides that we've been sharing already available, but I'm going to quickly create a new plan and call this our BEP. Save, jump into that plan. We can start creating these sections from scratch. So if you want them to kind of jump in and start creating them from scratch, we can do that. Or if you want to provide them access to some of the program templates that you might already have, you can go to the library, go to the projects, access any of the program templates, design, or maybe a previous project, or even allow them to reference some of the global templates that we have available, such as the Penn State guidelines or other templates that we have available in other languages. For this case, we'll jump into the general English templates, where teams can actually preview each of the sections, and students can then select what they want to bring in. So, Clive, do you want to go ahead and bring some content in?
Absolutely. I'm going to let me drag in those ones, their project information.
So it looks like Clive brought in a whole category from the project information, additional details sections, and ISO core principles. So now Clive can jump into any of these sections and make them more project specific. Why don't we look at the additional project details? So looks like he's already adding different content in there. Now, Clive, if you were to have a question to me or maybe any other students, how would you do that?
I maybe ask through the comments. I have a question.
Yep. So now Clive asked a question. I'm getting notified, and if I wasn't inside the platform, I would get an email notification to bring me back into the platform and help Clive with this question. So here we can quickly access that question. I can respond or reply back to his question within the thread, or we can start a new topic. So it really consolidates each topic within each section. Now, Clive, we've done some collaborating here. You can hear me. What would be the next step when it comes to approving this section?
So me as a student, I would then want to change this from being in progress and sharing it with my professor, lecturer. And if I click shared, you see the change in the status, and also it records that progress there. So you can see I've changed it to shared. And it means that I don't have to keep submitting work through lots of different systems. That would email my lecturer, my professor, and tell them that I have shared something ready for them to review. Maybe Louis would want to dig in and reply back in the comments, or if he was satisfied with the work, you could approve it. So being able to take...
At this point, Clive has shared this. I'm just acknowledging his work, saying looks great. And now as a manager, I can publish this section. Clive, with editing permission, cannot publish that section himself, but he can change it from in progress to shared for my approval. So this workflow can also be done between students, just depends on how the teams want to work. we've gone through some of the sections. We'll go ahead and publish these sections along the way. And a best practice that students should take is to print these documents. So we'll jump into the docs, select the plan, and select the settings. And now the students can choose to print all of the sections that are in progress, shared, or just published, and select which documents to choose. So since we have two documents, we'll print the BEP, we'll hit publish, and we'll give this BEP version 001 name and hit print. And that's going to consolidate that information and put that into a quick PDF for us to open, see an index, and review all of the information from that PDF. All right.
Just to say, if students wanted to make that look prettier, then we could also add a cover page, headers and footers, and things like that.
Yeah, lots of customizable features in here. We've created an archive for the plan. Now let's jump into some BIM scoping basics. With the first thing in BIM scopes, we need to set up a couple things. As a program leader, I could define, say, the model uses for this one. So for this case, I might say that we are going to use the model for 3D coordination and some design reviews. So maybe how could we describe that inside the scope?
We would put design reviews, and then we would define them as columns like that. Is that good?
Perfect, perfect. So Clive just created milestones as the headers. Now, before we start adding the content for these deliverables, we can open up the library, and there's thousands of elements that build these systems that we can choose from. If your team or your program is following a certain classification, we can go to the templates and review some of these classifications here. So examples like master format, unit format, omni-class. So some of these are already folder structures to help you with the coding that you can start with. But typically we see teams trying to keep it down to the basics, so organizing them by discipline. I'll go ahead and create a folder here called structural scope. Now at this point, Clive, do you want to go ahead and start pulling some scope in? Basically what Clive's going to do is just select some content like this and make sure that it enters inside the blue area, and look out for the blue tree. So if you have folders, you want to go inside of that, and then that'll start to put us, organize a certain scope. Looks like we have steel structures, wall foundations, and concrete stairs that are going to help us accomplish our deliverable, 3D coordination and design reviews. Now, what the students should be asking themselves is exactly what information or how much information is actually needed to accomplish these deliverables. If we were to open up, say, the concrete stairs, what geometry would you see defining these deliverables for the concrete stairs, Clive? Do you want to go ahead and start clicking away?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I was to need it for coordination, I would certainly not want to just have a 2D representation. So I'd want a 3D representation, probably including the landings as well.
Nice. What would you say you need in for design review purposes?
You tell me, is it just a 2D design review? What's the purpose of the design review? Maybe that would be another question that I would ask my professor.
Yeah, let's say it's a 2D design review.
Perfect. Yeah, so I would simply add a 2D representation and probably only want the stairs, not needing a lot more detail. It's about where the stairs are located, maybe where the stair cores are in the building.
Nice.
And then maybe that design review milestone would want to be first. So let me switch those around for us.
Nice.
We would do design review and then 3D coordination.
Cool. Now we would do the same thing for all the other systems, right? So the students could then just come in and say, okay, the same for the wall foundations. For 3D coordination, we might need wall foundations and the zones of influence at a higher level of detail. So we'll increase that very quickly. And so best practice is to keep it as lean as possible. But what we're doing here is answering some questions before those questions get asked. We have multiple teams working in this project. How could we define who's doing what?
I would use the assignments. So, for example, would you like me to do it? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead and assign some structural content. I'll say that the architect is responsible for some of the design review stuff, and it looks like Clive has assigned the structural content for 3D coordination. So this is actually showing the responsibility at a point in time, but it's also showing a handover for the team. So it really clarifies who's doing what at what period of time. Now, is there any information that we could add to this? Sometimes we have to specify that there's certain tasks or certain descriptions, notes, things that we can include. So inside of each assignment, we can actually build attachments, checklist items, comments, or descriptions. I'm not going to do this manually because what I also wanted to show here is if we have a scope template, we can actually access the library, go to the example scope. This is an example scope that I'm choosing from. And before I actually start bringing in the scope, I can choose some settings to bring in. So I want to bring in the 3D coordination milestone and the information that I've already used, like the teams, the information, checklist, attachments, notes, all of that information would come in this time. So I'm going to bring in the same concrete stairs here. We'll add that into the folder. And I'll drag it down here. And you'll see this time it actually contains some more information. And if I open this up, it actually brought in the description, the checklist, maybe some specs or Revit families that you can insert in here as a default or what you want to use as a template. So all of that information has been added and you're containing that information in one area.
And the key here is it's up to you as a teacher how much of this you want to define versus how much you want to leave open for the students. It ranges from defining a template with everything so that the students really understand what it is that they then have to go and do for the project for that milestone. Or if you wanted to simply just define 1 or 2 BIM uses, project milestones, and then it's up to the students to define exactly what the content is, what the elements and systems are that would be needed. And then for each milestone, how much geometry do they need it in 2D, in 3D? Do we need it in fabrication level geometry? Do we need to have additional information requirements from other people? Maybe if it was a handover milestone, you would need more information and less geometry. So it's very, very dependent on what you would like to provide and what that requirement looks like for your course. We certainly will provide some advice on the setup meeting as well.
Great. And finally, the last step is to archive our scope, right? Make sure we're keeping track of progress. So within the docs, instead of clicking the plan, we want to click the scope. Before we do print, let's check some of the settings. Within the settings, you can choose to either print a summary of all the milestones with all the teams, or you can select a certain scope for a certain team. So this can help potentially build a contract with just the engineer scope. For this case, I'll print a summary with all teams and all milestones. A few other settings here that we can choose from as well. Hit save, and we'll call this our scope version 001 and hit print. Now that's consolidating all that information, putting that into a PDF that we can then either share or download. Open this up, and this looks exactly like it is in the scope module, and review all of that information. And we also included the descriptions and attachments and checklists along to print with that information as well. All right, so we've created a plan, created a scope. What's the next step of the workflow?
We need to manage those tasks in some way. So sequencing and then maybe tracking them.
Yeah, good point. In order to have like a more proactive approach to coordination, what we've seen is teams sequencing tasks like they would in construction. You want to sequence mechanical before plumbing or structural before anything else. Within this schedule module, we can actually filter for the tasks that we've assigned for each of the milestones. So it looks like Clive's already coming in here and dragging and dropping some of the content. I'm in here looking at all of these unscheduled tasks that were automatically created as we clicked assignments in the scope. So Clive and his team is creating a schedule for the structural engineer. If I was the other team, I could be able to say, I'm going to just go ahead and change the team and add that the stairs follow along here and drag and drop when I believe I would do the concrete stairs. Now, what we've done here is have 2 teams working in one project schedule, yet they're managing their own content. But what this also does is give us an opportunity to review and see if we could have any schedule conflicts. So for instance, if I need steel structures before I need the concrete stairs, this could be a potential conflict. So we can then coordinate to have the steel structures maybe a little bit more ahead of time, or push the concrete stairs back. This way we can have the right information at the right time. Now, what we've done is set up a schedule for each schedule. There's Clive playing around with the drag and drop feature. It's too easy. So you can see all of the concrete, the information for the concrete stairs that we've added. This time, we know what team's working on what, but we have multiple team members. So for this case, I know I'm going to have Clive actually work on this specific element or system. And as a program leader, I might want to give him some advice or something to look for. So I'll say, be sure to check all width clearances. There we go. And excuse my spelling here. And what I've done is just communicate. That could be communication from the program leader to the students, or if the students have any questions, they can ask me any specific questions. Students can also communicate amongst themselves as well to really help progress that task. And speaking of progressing tasks, how could we show how to progress tasks?
What about in the track module?
Yeah, that's what the track module is for, right? The track module is actually looking at the same set of tasks that we have here. So the filter here works through the schedule, track, and verify. So if I want to look at just the structural engineer tasks, we can look at those 3 tasks only. So each team can go ahead in here and manage their own tasks. But the first thing we want to do is define a workflow to progress tasks. So here, by default, we have in progress, ready for review. And we already went ahead and added another column called revisions and fixes. And any one of these are customizable, and you can customize with your own highlights. Those highlights are going to be very important for us in the verify module. Here I'm going to drag in the concrete stairs and the wall foundations. There we go. And I can, again, these are the same containers of information. They are integrated for one another and will automatically update in this tracking area based off of what status they have, what dates have been assigned from the schedule, who's assigned to them, and what status they are in this track module. So you can access all of this information from any one of the modules. And if we did have any questions, again, we would comment and communicate anything in here between those students and between students and program leaders. So the next step of the workflow is to come in and verify these tasks. So here, either the student or the program leader can connect their models from BIM 360. I've selected the structural model, and I already have my structural task filtered. So here the next step is, as a student, to connect the stairs with the stair task, connect the wall foundations or structural foundations with those foundations. This way, it makes verifying easier. So now that I have these connections, I can open up this task, review my checklist or notes, anything that I might want to double check. Looks like I need to check all stairs connect to the floors. So I'll change the angle here, unhide the floors, review that they do meet, and start double checking my own work. Once I feel that I've completed this task as a student, I can then submit this task as ready for review to the manager or the program leader. And I would go through this workflow for all of the other tasks. Now, as a program leader, you might want to jump in here and filter for only the tasks that are ready for review. So in here, I would select what items are ready for review and select the model that has been submitted for ready for review. So I missed this step, but the student would have shared this model. And now I'm reviewing a model against tasks that are ready. And since these items are connected, I can select those tasks, open up that information, and do my QA QC. We can also see the status of the model here and verify of these tasks, and you'll see these items start to progress or update based off of the connections. So we have wall foundations that are ready for review. We're also going to verify these tasks. So once we've verified these tasks through the model, we want to make sure we publish this model. Publishing this model notifies each student or program leader, anyone involved in this project, that this model is now ready for its use. In this case, it's 3D coordination. So if we have verified every task, every requirement of the model, it has been met, now we can use this model for 3D coordination. All right, so we went through the couple basics for BIM compliance. Let's jump back into the plan module. Go to our slides here. And we went through these steps of the workflow. So let's do a quick recap. Claude, do you want to help me with the recap?
Yeah, so what Louis shared there was how to set up a project inside of a workspace and how to group them for cohorts that you manage as a program leader, and then being able to define permissions for each of the students. Most of the time we recommend that they are editors so that the program leader can then approve whether it's the content in the plan or in the scope or the final model as a deliverable. All of that gives you flexibility to then improve the communication with your team as you go. And then we also saw how to use templates from the global standards and make your life and the students' lives easier so that they can have a starting point to reference. And then when they have completed that content and they are ready to share for your approval, they would switch the shared status on each of those sections so that you can go through, review it, and come back in if there are required changes.
Yeah, they're really getting a feel of that workflow that they might experience in a real project.
Absolutely, yep. And then the same principle in the scope, but it was much more focused on 1 or 2 dedicated BIM uses. So how to define a BIM use that you would require. They then come and complete the items, whether they are systems or groups of elements, specific elements that are required, and then being able to define in the grid what is required, who is responsible for it, how much detail. A lot of the detail can be related to information requirements and checklist items, attachments, other specifications. Maybe there are certain elements that you would like them to use. Completely up to you how much you specify and how much you leave open to the students. And then we saw how we would sequence the tasks so you would enable teams to be able to have a better workflow and then be able to track the progress of those tasks so that we could understand what the status of those tasks were and how you could communicate internally with the team as they go through. And then the final step was checking the model. So the step that the student would take if they are responsible for the model would be to submit the model and put it into the shared status when they have tasks that are connected to the elements that they are ready for you to review. And it's up to you as the program leader to verify. It's quite fun, clicking on the task, seeing what the elements are, and then clicking the verify button and seeing that slide away. You can go through that workflow, and if there's anything that needs changing, fixing, commenting on, you can ask for that as you go through. So that's the workflow going right the way through. We have a couple of resources here. The basics is a set of 1-minute videos that you guys can have for yourselves and also for the teams that you teach, so that they can understand the clicks and really into the depths of each of the features. And then also a masterclass. This is a set of content that you can use and teach on your programs and adapt it however you wish.
Yeah, we do have those available with other partners in different languages as well. So connect with us if you're interested in that. And of course, we have plenty of webinars also in different languages, just teaching the basics of BIM management, things that we've learned to be best practices or insight. We learned many of the challenges, and we hear from many customers and partners and standards bodies all over the world on how they could create better BIM projects and plan for them. Thanks for joining us today. Contact us through the in-app chat, and don't forget to sign up for a free Plannerly account if you don't have one already, or register if you're interested in using Plannerly in your own BIM program.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.